They
That's
are.
totally valid. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you have your cup. Yes. Oh, I'm so happy. This makes me
With my tea, my yummy tea.
cool.
Um,
Well,
Perfect.
I just pushed record here and like we can just like, I can edit it after. So if we're like, let's cut that, we can definitely do that. So don't worry about that. But I'll just like,
Most of my stuff is live, so I don't
yeah.
do much editing.
Okay, okay, perfect. Okay, well, I'm just gonna tell everybody welcome then. So,
Mhm.
welcome to Cuppa Jen, everyone. I'm really excited. This is episode 7 now. Woot woot. And I'm just really pumped because my friend Kathy is actually here, and it's really cool how we met. Because we met online, like over the internet. That's like the new world that we're in, where we can
I know.
online. We can actually meet on Instagram. So, hi, Kathy. Welcome.
Hello.
So, say hi. So where are you coming to us from right now?
Well, I live in Houston, but I am currently in Hermosa Beach, California.
Oh,
So enjoying a little holiday over here.
yeah. Okay, so you're there for like a little holiday. That's so awesome.
Yeah,
I
I'm in between different speaking engagements, and I was like, I'm just gonna hang out here for some days before this weekend. So super excited.
Oh, perfect. I love that you're there because I wish I was there. It's in Vancouver right now. It's pouring rain. So
Oh,
like I looked outside and I was like, she's gonna be coming to me from California, and this is what I have to deal with today. But
oh
that's
yeah. When we're done here, I'm headed to the beach.
yeah. Oh, get that tan on. I love it. It's funny though because you're from Texas, so I have this mug and it's got like the Texas
Yes, the
on it.
state.
Yeah. And I'm just so excited about it because I went to Texas a few years ago now.
Uh-huh.
Visit my friends Haley and Willem, and they got married down there. And my friend Jenna got me this mug while I was there. I didn't go to Houston. Well, actually, I was in Houston probably just at the airport, and then I went to Dallas actually. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's super fun. It's like Texas is such a vibe. I'm sure you're used to it because you're from there, but I love Texas.
Well, I really like it. Well, I moved there a couple of years ago, so I'm from Miami, Florida, is where I like grew up most of my life, and then went to Houston for work. So most people now know me as like a Texan, but I'm like, it's only been 4 years. Still getting adapted.
Oh, I'm from Miami. Come on now. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
so
it
you
was a lot of,
were brought there for work.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep. Moved there for one of our companies, so it's been fun.
So why don't you tell us, Kathy, like what do you, because we got connected, I think, because we're dreamers, and like, you
Yeah.
speak a lot about that. You do a lot of public engagements, as you said, which is so cool. Like, tell us a bit about like what you do and like kind of your own dreams, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have actually been an entrepreneurship and leadership coach for a long time. I started in sales, and through that process started working, helping people start their own businesses. And through that, and for me, I love creating time and money freedom so that people can do what they want, when they want, and be able to pursue their dreams. And that was a big factor for me from being younger was I grew up a little bit lower income.
Okay.
And so time and money were always reasons why we couldn't do things, and it's like, oh, we don't have the money for that. We don't. And I'm like, I want to be able to do like all these things and see the world and travel. And I had like all these things I had wanted to do. And so that was something that really motivated me to be an entrepreneur, to have my own business so that I was the boss and I could develop that. And I was very blessed to be able to start that young.
Yeah.
And so I've had my own business now for 18 years. And through that process have been able to help so many others do the same thing, And so for me, anytime somebody's starting a business, like I do a lot of dream work and I sit down and it's like, okay, we do like a dreams list and we sit down and talk about why. And I really want to know their deeper motivations for doing anything because as you know, and I know you guys have already had some episodes with fear and adversity. And I mean, you're going to hit blocks in the road, which most people, when they hit those, they're like, oh, okay, like, I guess I'm not supposed to go that way. It's like, no, like, that's just life. And I feel like it's almost testing you to see how badly you want what's on the other side, but you have to have a clear vision of what you want if you're going to get there, and I always tell people, I'm like, all those roadblocks, all those challenges, like all of that. It's like, think of like, if you were driving and there was like a detour or a roadblock, like if your GPS knows where it needs to go, it'll reroute. And the same thing with our minds. So a lot of my work I'm very passionate about just having like vision and goals and really understanding the potential and possibilities within each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And that seeps into all my work, so
Yeah.
I'm a business consultant, I guess, if you want to label. By trade, I do a lot of work with culture, teams, a lot of businesses. I do some work with individuals, but mostly with corporations, teams, organizations, is where most of my work is.
Because especially if you're dealing with companies and they don't have a clear vision, and that's not just one person but a group of people,
right?
And then they're like, where do we go? I don't know what's happening. That could cause some, I'm sure, chaos, and then also just like a lack of purpose within each person.
Yeah. Yep. So high turnover. That leads to a lot of high turnover. I'm consulting. I was consulting for a company this past week, and that was a big thing where they're like, their most senior person besides the owner has been there a year, and like these guys have been open for more than a year, like 5 years plus. She's like, the next senior person 6 months, the other ones, and I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, yeah, they just deal with so much turnover. And as I was chatting with them and said, okay, well, what are your values? What's your corporate, mission? Like, well, our headquarters is here. And I'm like, okay, but that's fine. And you can have that, but locally, like, what do you guys want to provide to the community, here in your area? Because when there's, when you have that and your people are like, oh, here's what we want to bring to this area of our town. Here's what we want to be known for. Here's how we want to provide value to people. Then they have a deeper sense of purpose that they're more connected to locally. And that's exciting, for them to be able to like get up and go to work. And, the other side that a lot of companies don't think about is the more, there's this big like taboo of like mixing business and personal life, right? But at the same time, the world that we're in, more and more people are like longing for connection, and they want to belong to something, and they don't want to be just a number, right? So, when you take time to really know your people and at least a little bit of like some of their dreams and goals, and you can really connect it to what you're doing and how your job opportunity, your business, your company, whether it's just the financials from it, but if you're actually talking about what they want to do with it, and like they want to buy a house, they want to take their family on vacation, they want to, start their own business of some sort, and be able to talk about those things and make plans with them, they're so much more loyal to you, and they're so excited to work with you, for you, and build your dream because you're helping them build theirs. And so that's something that I talk a lot about with executives is, what are you doing with your people? Like, do you know who they are? Do you know why they're working? Because the more you know about that, you'll see how you're back, because you're like, oh, that doesn't have to do with the bottom line. And I'm like, no, actually, you'll see your bank account increase big time when people show up, excited to like be a part of this and give back because of how you're helping them,
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, do you think like a lot of CEOs are intimidated at first by the fact that people have dreams that aren't their company? Or things like that? Just because I was thinking that's actually true for my life. I mean, like, even just down to the littles of like, I worked at Starbucks for years, and I had a boss there who just understood that I was an actor and that I had rehearsals and stuff. And he was like, yeah, go do it. And even though Starbucks is not even like his company, but he was like, I felt like we had the same retention at our Starbucks for like 2 years, which for Starbucks is kind of uncommon because like there's usually high turnover. And then even after that, there wasn't that many people who left until he ended up leaving. But I think it's because he understood that I had a dream and that like I was always going to do my best, like be friendly to people and whatever, do like really good quality work. But I mean, ultimately my dream was somewhere else. So do you think that, I don't know, people are kind of intimidated by that, even though they could maybe combine, like
there's
and theirs,
You're right on, by the way, with that, because there's different schools of thought, right? Well, there's two things that I see like that are very common themes. Like, one is that a lot of C-level executives tend to be like, well, I'm here because I'm the one that's supposed to make the decisions or do this or do that. And they're just like very disconnected from their people, like, because they're just like, all right, no, like what matters is like that we get business XYZ here. But the conscious leaders, like, and the companies that are really like thriving with culture and retention and growth, get that it's beyond that and that we have to serve our people. And there is this fear in old school leadership, and it's more the scarcity mindset versus abundance.
Yes.
Where the scarcity mindset's like, oh, if they achieve their dreams, they're going to leave me. And really like what I, see in the most successful people and people that I work with is that, well, if you don't, like, if they quit and they stay, that's worse. Like if they're mentally checked out and you're paying the money and you're spending resources and they're not even showing up to do, what they could be doing, like it's better to get somebody else. Right. And so I found that in companies that it's scary, right, at first. And I was actually with a group a couple weeks ago. We ran a retreat for a group of regional directors for a property management company. And we were talking, and I love like their theme of their retreat was people first. And we were chatting, and at the end I was really acknowledging them. I said, it's amazing to hear you guys talk like this because this isn't normal amongst a lot of executive teams and top tier people. They're like, how do we create more profits? How do we get, like growth with this and that? But instead the theme of their retreat was people first. And it was all centered around that. And I shared with them, I actually gave them my book as a gift. I said, use this. I said, you guys are already conscious people. And so some people are scared to do this with their teams because they don't want their teams to leave. But here's what I know to be true. Like if you really know what your people want and you're helping them get there and you're having plans with them, like maybe they're only here for 3 or 5 more years, but they're here at a different level and they produce so much more and they don't want to leave you empty handed. And so they will work to find a replacement for them. They will work to make that person great because they don't want to leave you stranded because they're so grateful for what you've done for them, and then some people like stay longer, like they're doing a lot of their dreams, but their dreams didn't involve them leaving you. Like they love where they're at and they're getting a chance to like do all these other things they wanted to do. And they just, people, like we're humans, and unfortunately a lot of businesses are ran like machines. And so they're, again, when they feel like people know them, they feel appreciated, they feel recognized, and they really feel like seen, right, or heard. That's a deeper level of connection, and it's incredible what can happen for your business. But I think that with CEOs, entrepreneurs, like business people that are, that they're just scared. Maybe they don't have the culture and they're scared to lose people. So they're just trying to, they're like, no, we're not going to talk about that. But it's actually like so outdated. Like you want to talk about those things and people really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that too, because last week with my friend Tunji, he's a content creator for social media, and he said it's revolutionary, but I just started, treating people online like people. Like, like I would, like if they would comment or whatever, I would try to reply back, or like, like if they like DM me, I would try to like, and just he said the growth that he experienced even over social media, and that's just social media, let alone your business, let alone with people you're genuinely talking to every day, like in your work environment, treating them like people and understanding like their deeper value, which I think is also really cool that you started off by saying like your kind of why, as it were, is that you grew up in a situation where you wanted that financial freedom, and then you're like allowing other people to receive that, which is really like, I think that's a beautiful dream because you're giving people like, I don't know, such a gift, because I feel like a lot of us are really bogged down by finances and the trap of that, which I can relate to as an actor because
and it sucks because there's so many talented people like yourself, and I mean all different industries, and especially like for me, like I love the arts. Like I'm a huge supporter of the arts. I love theater, I love music, I love and it's so sad to see people who are given these unbelievable gifts and talents, and it's so shut down because their family is like, no, go get a real job, no, go do this, and it's like, you can actually, have it all. And now Do you need to have a plan? Like if you want certain things, if you like, there's ways to do it. But it bothers me when people like shut down a part of them that brings them so alive, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like for us on this planet, like people are like, oh, what's your purpose? What's your purpose? And there's so many different like thought patterns on that. And for me, I'm like, I just feel that it's to find that what makes you come alive. Like you're supposed to shine as brightly as possible while you're on this planet, you know? And whatever that is, and finding those things that make you come alive. And when you do that, it inspires other people to want to do the same, you know? And I think if more people were living in their truth, we're living in their path, and we're like, what is it that makes them happy? What brings joy? And bringing more of that into their life. And it doesn't necessarily mean quitting their job, but like adding dance classes or acting classes, or doing, like my friend started doing improv classes around her real estate. And just like having more laughter and joy, and just doing things, giving yourself permission to like have fun.
Revolutionary. What? I know. Yeah, and it is so interesting though, because like and I think what you're saying about having a plan and all of that is really important, because I just feel like what has happened to a lot of people is they get, like you were saying at the very beginning, like pretty discouraged from the first time that something comes up against that thing. So it's like, oh, like maybe this is like a sign from God or from life or something that I'm not supposed to do this. But actually, like, no, pretty much anybody who has like done something worth doing, like that they've like really wanted to do, and it's like grown, has had some adversity come up.
100%.
So how do you coach people to like keep pursuing things through that adversity? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. So, by the way, in my book, so it's 3 parts that are in there. The first part is all about what do you want and why do you want it. It's a lot of fun, and I recommend for people to do that. And even if you don't read the book, I have a free gift that if you just go on my website, and I can say at the end, like, it's a 7-step. Yeah, it's a little 7-step workbook you can download and do, but do it. It's so fun.
Okay, I'm excited.
And that like first part, like just gets your juices going, you know? And it's like, what do you want? What do you want it? The second part of my actual book is all about like, how do you, like the strategy, breaking down goals, and just a lot of things I've done with clients, things that were done with me early on that have helped me, achieve a lot of my goals and dreams. And so that process is like the how-to. And then the last part is all about what you were just asking. And I'm going to share some things, but it's how do you sustain it, right? Like, how do you actually go do it? Because the fact is you could have this like a beautiful dream. You have all the tools, you have this potential. You're like, yes, like I'm going to go do this. But you know what? If you're in the wrong environment, you're not going to grow into what you were able to be. Like, just think about plants, like if you just like you plant this seed and never nourish it, and it doesn't get sunlight or gets too much sunlight, depending on what kind of plant it is, like the thing's going to die. So are you as a person, like as an individual, are you in the right environment for growth and for these things to happen? Right. And for me, there's different factors. Like you have to look at your internal and external environments and really check your energy, because internally there's so much going on, emotionally, mentally, and making sure, like as simple as, are we taking care of ourselves physically? What are we putting into our bodies? Because that affects us, whether you think it does or doesn't. Like, what you're putting into your body affects you. It affects your hormones. It affects, like even depression. It can cause sickness and like really slow you down. And so being conscious of that. So simple things is like water, sleep, breathing, putting nutrients into your body somehow. Even if you don't like healthy food, find a way to sneak nutrients in. I've got lots of ways. And so looking at that, but knowing that your energy is not just physical, it's also emotional, it's mental, it's spiritual. So do you have practices? And something super simple are morning practices, right? That help you help your mind stay focused on what needs to happen. I don't know if you've heard of, and Hal Elrod, he's an international bestseller. He wrote the book called Miracle Morning. And how I met him selling Cutco many, many years ago. He's unbelievable. And he wrote this book that is just, it's huge, and you can check it out, Miracle Morning. but it's so simple. And he said, this saved my life. It's called the Savers, his morning practice.
Yeah.
And he's like, silence in the morning, whether it's meditation, prayer, whatever it is, that's the S. A is for affirmations, and there's like cool apps and things, but like having those things that you look at of like, I'm going to be the, whatever actress, or I'm going to be in this or whatever. And just looking at stuff, and then actual visualization, and not just like visualizing, but feeling it like it's already happened, like your body feeling it.
Yeah.
Because when your mind like sees it and feels it, like, it's like, all right, like now let's go, like, let's get, like, it already knows, like, that's where we're going, and it's, people can look at it and be like, oh, whatever, who, like, there's so much science. Like, I can sit here and just start giving you a bunch of science, like, studies on like how the brain works. And that's why even virtual reality, like, you put something on and you're like, oh my God, it's not real. You're like sitting in your freaking living room, but your brain still feels like it's happening because it doesn't know. It doesn't, like, your brain doesn't know the difference. Like when it sees things, it's like real, like the receptors. So anyway, I'm not a scientist, but there's so much science behind it. It's incredible that shows the power of that, and so he has the V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, and then S for scribing, for journaling. And it's just some of the best practices of the most successful people. When you study people who have achieved at the highest levels, like, they all had different forms of practices that kept them focused. And so whether it was meditating, journaling, extra, whatever it is, or a combination, right? Typically it's multiple of these. He was like, well, I'm going to do all of these every day in the morning to kick my day off and just start transforming my mind, because we're the ones that stop ourselves the most from getting to where we want to go. Like, the fact is, like, life is going to, like, there's just so much shit that's going to happen. We already know that. And if you don't know that there's a lot of shit that's going to go down to keep you from getting to where you want to go. So
yes, indeed.
But it's up to us to train our minds, our emotions, to be strong enough to be like, no, like, we're getting there. So what's the new plan? Like, I've got to reroute here, and something to achieve that. Like, one, there's like your internal, coaching and what you're doing for yourself. But then there's also external, right? And so I mentioned the environment, the external environment, like, who's around you? What's your circle of influence? Do you have great mentors? Do you have great coaches? Do you, or is all you have in your circle the people that are constantly telling you, like, how this is a dumb idea? You need to, like, be more practical. You need to be more realistic. You need to get and like, that's not, like, if you want to go somewhere, like, you have to limit your time with those people. Ideally eliminate those people from your life, but there are some that are family or loved ones that you can't, like, eliminate. But you want to limit your time with them. Like, I had to literally, like, limit time with family members that were just, like, negative Nancy's, and just were always like, what are you doing? And, like, you're working too much. Like, when I was younger, and I was like, look, there's a life that I want, and I'm willing to put in the time now to create it. And if you're not going to be supportive, like, I just can't talk to you that much, because every time I talk to you, it brings my energy down and it slows me down, And so I would really appreciate your love and support, and just, Kat, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of how hard you're working. And, like, that's what I need from you, or I can't talk to you that much. And I had to really identify in my life, like, who were the givers of energy, who were the takers of energy, and really be strategic and intentional about how my time was going to them, And so that's really important if you're, like, out trying to achieve things, like, the people around you, that what's going into your head, who's feeding you, right? So what are you feeding yourself, but then also what are you allowing to be around you? And when it comes to, like, adversity and, like, the bullshit that life brings, understanding that, one, like, there's hurting people that hurt others. And so there's just crap that's going to happen that's just not fair. It's not fun, that no one should have to deal with, right? And then there's things that are totally out of our control, like earthquakes and hurricanes, and just, like, things that happen that you're like you couldn't have controlled it, right? And so too many people allow things they can't control to, like, take over their life, and just, like, keep them in these, like, crazy depressions, and really hold them back, from where they could be. And so it's important. And I always share with people, like, when it comes to adversity, like, first you have to know that it's part of the game, like, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So
Yeah,
Really
I love that.
understand that. The second thing is like, you have to prepare mentally for it, like cultivate. And I think through the meditation, through reading, through coaches, you're able to cultivate this emotional intelligence, this strength, this courage that really will get you through things. And so before it hits, like, are you preparing yourself? Are you strengthening your mind?
Yeah.
Are you strengthening your soul? Right. The third thing I tell people is like, choose to like learn or strengthen from adversity. Like every time something happens, say, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I strengthen from this? Right. And I'm not saying that everything happens to us for a good reason, but when we experience things, could we choose to grow stronger? Could we help somebody else on their journey by being that example, for them? And I think that's been a huge thing for me. That's another key I tell people is like, learn from others who have overcome adversity. There's so many inspiring people that overcame like what seemed like insurmountable, like just like crazy things that seem like there's no way they're going to be able to like overcome this. Right. And instead of them surrendering, to their adversities, like they triumphed over them and they accomplished incredible things that other people might have said, like, that's absolutely impossible, So are you like looking at that? Like, I love seeing those stories. I'm so inspired by them. And I'm like, okay, they had to do all these things, and when you look at people, I think about actors, like I've had actors that I coached, right? And I'm like, look at Lucille Ball, look at like different people like that were just like rejected and even someone like a Walt Disney who was, had just this great idea and this artist and people thought he was crazy. And look what he created because he just didn't give up on his dream, And so I love seeing all those stories of people who just never gave up. And the big thing that I shared before is you have to enlist support from the right people. You have to have a great support system of friends and family that help keep you on track. So that's really important. But those are some of the concepts I always share. And that's something that, if people want to dive deeper, like is also in that last third of the book is all about internal environment, external environment, your circle of influence, like tips to overcome adversity and how you get through it. Because it starts with vision, a clear vision, because if you don't have a clear vision, like when things get tough, you're going to get lost. Like you don't even know where you're going. So you have to know where you're going. You have to have a plan, but then you have to be flexible and know that the plan's going to change because the crap's going to get in the way.
Yeah. The plan is absolutely going to change. And, but I think it's more so about having the goal in the first place than it is about sticking to it in a way. Like, I mean, sticking to it, but like, you know what I mean? Like it
gets you moving.
Yeah, it's going to move. And I just love what you're saying about the environments because like, yeah, last week we were definitely talking about which voices we should allow into our, basically into our heads, because, there are, like you say, the people around you who are even like family who you love, but they're like, and I don't know, you're saying, like you say, like hurt people, but also sometimes I think it's a fear on their part of like maybe they really love you and they would be scared in your situation, even though you're not. And you're like, well, you're kind of putting that on me, but okay. And there's all kinds of reasons why people, I don't know, like they don't want to live, I guess, their fullest life or something. I don't know. Like you're saying, come alive fully. Maybe their own dreams were dashed and it just kind of comes out like, well, we got to be practical. And it is funny, like about acting, like when I was in university, my first year, my professor, I mean, to be fair, she's a theater professor, so she's smart to do this, but she sat us down and she talked about how at least from our university, the same amount of grads of the theater program were getting jobs as opposed to other areas too, like the psychology or some of the sciences. Like we always think of like the arts as like a not practical job or whatever, but actually we had the same amount of grads getting jobs. So maybe depending on like what you're talking in terms of financials might have been a bit like they might vary a bit, but like I don't know, I just think it's so interesting how even conceptually, like we want to shut down that idea before like we're even in like at university, like people have already been told, oh, you can't do this as a career. It's like, wow, like, you're just starting and you're already like on the wrong foot in a way because somebody has already told you this is dumb to get a degree in this or whatever it might be, right? So it's kind of sad the kinds of voices that will come up, and even from family who really, like, maybe even mostly from family who really love you, but they're just
And and you have to learn to like filter the voices, because when the family is like, oh my gosh, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's not that they don't believe in you. It's that they love and care about you, and they want the best for you. And they think that this safe path is the best path, even though it might not be for you. And so I had to learn too, to respect that as I was going to do the things I wanted to do that weren't secure, because I've never been an employee, and I've never had a stable paycheck, and I've never had like health insurance and benefits, because I've been my own boss, and so I created that. But that was scary, for family, and especially family that works so hard to like, have a stable check, and moved here to the States to have more opportunity and give us opportunity, and then they're like, how are you just winging it, not knowing, and it's like, well, like, I know that like I'm going to work hard and I'm going to make shit happen. So like, I'll be fine.
That's also why, like, that's also, I feel like, quite an American dream that way, that you can
Right.
actually do that. Like, I know I'm Canadian, so fair enough. But like, I just feel like that's kind of the thing, is like the fact that you're able to do whatever you choose, actually. Like, that's kind of like the cool thing. And I love that you have the freedom to do that. And I relate to the whole check to check thing and the like, what's going on. Ultimately too, though, it's like I can just sense from you that you're just like so happy with like giving that joy to people, and that's like important to you at a deeper level. And I think that's so important. And then how many of us are doing something kind of more safe, but ultimately like missing out on like true living, sort of like how you were saying, certain employees, like
parts of you
might
die.
still be there, but they're like not really there. And then other employees like are fully alive and there, like, and even if they leave after 5 years, but they'll try to like help you out and stuff. Like the attitude is so different. The kind of quality really is just going to be so different. And I think like for us, quality of life, like it's important to do something that we really like enjoy, and like you say, have fun too. And it'll be hard, obviously, but so that's just so interesting. And particularly to what you're talking about the mental toughness, like I really relate, and the emotional intelligence. I had an experience the other day. To be fair, what you're saying about my health, didn't sleep enough that week. Let's be clear, like could have had some better nutrition, a little more water. I know that's true. But it was just amazing because I was like running my show that I'm currently in a theater show. And we were running it, and I have definitely the most lines, and that's fine. Like, and it's a very talky sort of show, which is also fine. And I'm in a British accent, which is whatever, but
fun.
It's super fun. But we were doing it, and it was the first time like we have like an off book deadline where we're not supposed to be on our scripts, but they will still like if you call line, they'll say it for you. But then we have like an off book deadline where you can't call line anymore. And so we were doing the run of the show. We did like a whole run. We were going to do it again. So we did the first one. I was like, oh, you know what? I actually felt like I did pretty good with that. So I'm going to, go do a second one. And I'm not going to like kind of look at my script, because I need to just sort of trust myself and let it, which were all true things. And then we get to like halfway through the second run, and there's this one line that I'd been working pretty well. And I don't know, it had been trickier for me. And then all of a sudden I'm on stage and I just couldn't think of it. And I was like, okay, remember your training. So do the breathing. Is it coming? I just couldn't think of it. I was like, I don't even know the concept. And I just like, my brain kind of went, I don't know it. Like I just sort of gave up sort of mentally. And I just was like, it was amazing to me, especially because I would consider myself like a fairly confident person, but I mean, human, like we're human. But I just like the place I went to emotionally, like right away was like so funny. Like it was like fear and embarrassment and frustration and anger.
I mean, that's our nature.
I know. And I was like, what is going on? Like, and it really took me, like, I ended up just skipping a bit forward, and it didn't literally affect anyone at all. Like everyone was fine. Like they were like, it's going to, like, Janessa, you have a ton of lines. Don't worry about it. And we're in rehearsals. Like if you can't mess up in rehearsals, you know what I mean? Like then like, what's the point? Like really, like, cause that's like, we're trying to prep for a show. and it's also live theater and things happen. So, but the place
Mhm.
I went to mentally was so funny that like I left and I was like, I kind of feel like crying, but at the same time, I just don't want to cry because I don't want to validate this feeling of like, oh, anger and frustration and blah, blah, blah. Because I just thought, it's just a line. Like, why does our
Mhm.
brain go there right away? Like, it's somehow a
Mhm.
self-worth thing instantly. You know what I mean? Like, I was literally just like going along doing my script. And then all of a sudden now I'm having these inner turmoil, deep thoughts about like, why do I feel so stupid? And it's just funny
Right.
how the like basically what I ended up doing is
Mhm.
just the mental connection that I had just to go, wait a second. It's not that my feelings aren't valid, because yeah, it's like totally fine to be a human, but
Right.
also like and give myself that grace, but also realize like, yeah, it's just a
Mhm.
line. And like you don't need to be like embarrassed or have like anger towards yourself for that. And like I think it's
Mhm.
just funny. And I'm sure that, I mean, that's acting, but I'm sure every single kind of career has different things where they just have a moment, they go, whoa, like suddenly
Yeah.
it's like no longer just like I don't know, you're going through your day and then it's just something really hits you and you're like, I don't know like why this is so attached to me, but it just is.
Mhm.
And
For
having that,
sure.
I think, mental toughness to go, okay, like emotion is going to come and go, but like what's true here? Like what's actually happening?
Mhm.
Like you're going to have adversity. It's part of the game. But like you say, like, I love what you said that suffering is kind of a choice. Like you don't have to
Mhm.
stay there. You can be there, but you don't have to stay there.
Right.
And wow, that's powerful for me. And I think for a lot of actors, because especially in the arts, I feel like things like depression and stuff, because we're dealing with emotion all the time. That's like
Yeah.
literally our job. So to then what's going to happen is that mental, like if you don't have that strength ahead of time, it can be really, I think,
Mhm.
quite dangerous, because it's like it's sort of an uneven job that way. Like
Yeah.
you can't just have a day where you're not fully showed up. Like you have to be fully
Mhm.
here mentally. Like technically you could show up in your pajamas, but you still have to mentally really be there. Whereas
Right.
other things, I feel like you could dress up really nice but not mentally be there. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's just one of those
Uh,
particular
What
careers.
you're sharing is everywhere. I think that we see it and we hear it in the arts more because they're more in the limelight, and so we see actors and we see, because all eyes are on them. And so you see it in the tabloids, you see things happening and, people feeling certain or suffering, and the depression and all these things. But that's humans. I mean, we see it everywhere. They're
Mhm.
just, people don't know who they are. They're just like an executive at some company, and nobody knows them versus like, the actor that we see on TV. But really, knowing that like everyone's going through that. And I think, what you said was so powerful. And it's something I constantly, and talking to people that I work with and coach, it's like, when you feel feelings, like, it's okay. Like, don't beat ourselves up. We're human. And I love, that you made that statement. And it's so brilliant to really own that and say like, okay, I'm feeling this. Like, own where you're at. Like, don't dismiss it. Don't like, just say like, okay, I'm feeling this. Like, why am I feeling this? Okay, this is not true. Like, I'm actually really smart and it's just a line. And all right, and then move on.
Yeah.
But it's like, feel it, like, own it and let it go.
Yeah.
Like, identify where it's coming from and be like, that's not true. And let it go, versus allowing it to just like fester and be like, oh, but you're like, oh my God, maybe I am dumb. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe,
Totally.
like,
Yeah, and I think
like,
what helped me personally was with the other thing you mentioned, though, the environment of encouragement. Because I was like, okay, and I called my boyfriend, and he was just kind of like gave me like almost like a sports pep talk. He's like, "This is not the time to give up, girl. You got this." You know what I mean? And like I went for a walk too, so that was like a health thing, and just
oh yeah, it's
allowed it
great.
to, like, that was my way to process, to kind of go, okay,
Mhm.
okay. And like sometimes the best thing would be to cry. Like sometimes the best thing would be to just let out that emotion and move on. But for me, I was just like, yeah, something about it was like that felt like me overcoming that moment, like just to be like,
Mhm.
hey, all right, I can do this, and have some good words spoken over me, and then just go for a walk and, like you say, like let it go,
Mhm.
because there's just, I feel like, not enough time for me to fester onto like a line, like one line,
Right.
you know? And for sure, I mean, it would be bigger things, obviously, across different jobs and such. But for me, that's what it came down to, is just realizing, okay, it's actually not as big as I'm making it. I can let
Mhm.
this go. I don't need to be discouraged about it. And yeah, and then kind of move forward from there. So I
Mhm.
think that's, yeah, I'm so excited to read your book now. I think it's so important that we do just like, yeah, put in these practices to, so that when these moments come, even though, because I had no idea, I thought it would just like, I mean, it was so small, but it felt so big at the time. For a moment I was like, whoa. And
Mhm.
you just don't know when that's going to come up, and so you want to be prepared ahead of time mentally for
Yeah,
it.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. um
Yeah.
what advice, Cathy, do you have for dreamers? Like, if you were to give like anyone who's listening one piece of advice for like they want to pursue their dreams. I know that's such a big
Mhm.
question, but what's your number one piece of advice?
Um, get a plan. Like I feel like a lot of the dreamers out there, they keep dreaming and they never do anything because they don't have someone help them with that. So I see, it's so funny because it's like talking to different groups, right? So for my like doers, I'm like, you need to dream a little more. And then for my
Yeah,
dreamers, I'm like, we need to do a little more. Like you have got all these great
we're all
ideas,
set. Yeah.
and that, so I think that it's taking time to like do, like have, like I love dream sessions. That's something that I'm super huge on, and you'll see that in my book and in the little worksheet that everybody can like download for free. And so dream away, but then look at your dreams and actually give it timelines. Like decide, like, and not all of them, but when I do a dreams list, now I look at it and go, okay, what are the ones that I'm like, those would be nice? And what are the ones that I'm like, these are happening?
Yeah.
So identifying your non-negotiables, and then look
Yes.
at them and go, when do I want to do these? Because if you don't actually ever give them a date or a time, like most will never happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I want to do this in the next 10 years. I'd love to do this in the next 3 to 5. I'd love to do this year. I want to do these like in my lifetime. Doesn't matter when they happen, but like I want to do them. So just giving them timelines. So that way you know what to focus on for this year, but also your 3 to 5 year goals might have some action items that need to start happening now in order for those to happen, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to buy this like property out in Puerto Rico, which is where I'm from. And that was like, okay, within the next 5 years, I want to buy this piece of land that I want to build on. And in order for me to do that, there's action steps that I have to start doing now, like save a certain amount, so that I can be able to buy this huge property.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to look at things, but it lets you, once you give it timeline, like give your dreams timelines, like actually decide like, I want to do this year, or I want to do this in the next 5 years. And so that way you can actually have somebody to help you make a plan. And
Yeah.
I feel that that's the, disconnect. And I work with a lot. I've worked with so many artists, and I'm so thankful that they came across my path, like through different programs, and just because I needed to make quick money. And so I bumped into them in like sales. One of our companies is a direct sales company. And they came in, and I've worked with so many artists of all types. And they're like, well, I'm going to be an artist, or I'm an actress, or, I'm not really a business person. And I'm like, yeah, but
Gotta
it's
be a business person
creating.
though, as an
Yeah,
actor.
I'm like, you're always going to sell yourself, right?
Yeah.
As an actor or artist, whatever, you're selling yourself, you're selling your work.
Yeah.
Like if you're actually designing stuff, like you're selling your work, unless you just want to sit somewhere and make stuff and never get paid for it.
Yeah.
Like actually being able to like learn how to sell you and what you have. But also like putting things to a plan, and like a lot of them like have all these great ideas, but they've never had the like structure of like, okay, like let's break down goals. And so I think that learning how to break things down and knowing the small action steps required. Like one of my students, she wanted to have her own art studio and all these things she wanted to have, which she accomplished. And it was awesome to watch her through the years do that. But it was breaking down, okay, what's needed, right? Like what kind of a space do you want? Like, what are you going to want? How much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it down. How many years will that take? How many pieces of art do you need to create to have your first show? How many, and so just like making a plan around it. And so now she knew, okay, every month I need to create like something to add to this collection, and then by here I'll be able to have like a full exhibit type thing. So yeah, just getting somebody, like not being afraid to ask for help, to get strategy, tips and strategies so that you can put those dreams into reality. Cause that's really cool. When you're able to see and you're like, oh my gosh, like I dreamed about this.
It's really happening. Like it's really real. Yeah.
It's amazing. Like it brings me to tears, like just seeing when people get there and they're like, like this is something I dreamed about forever. And there's so many dreams that they're so like they're so easy to become a reality if there was just a plan and some discipline. But people just don't make a plan.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
All of a sudden it's like 10 years later, I could have done that like within 2 years. But because there wasn't a plan or discipline, because sometimes you make a plan, but then you don't stick to it.
Yeah.
Then that's lacking, So I think that you dream, you have a plan, and you discipline yourself to take action. Like it's incredible the things that you can create.
Yeah. Simple, and you heard it here first, everyone. Make a plan. I just love it. It's so practical. I love it. Let's make a plan. Yes, I think it's so good. And I think maybe too, like if people just don't, I don't know, you have to validate your dream first. You have to know that like it's okay, so recognize that you have the dream and then like make a plan to make it real, or it's just always going to stay in the dreamland. And I love that you said that, because I do feel like that is a difference. Sometimes I meet a lot of people who I love, and they're really talented too, but like, are you really going after it, or is it just like a little fun thing we talk about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's make it happen. I love that.
Yep. Sure.
So, okay. Thank you so much, Cathy. Please plug.
Yes.
I want everyone to know about you. So you have some websites, you have your book.
Yeah, the best thing, if you go to cathykristen.com, like it has links to, because I have 2 other companies. We do all of our consulting through Elevated You. I help people start businesses. Thestartgirl.com is my website. And for people who like want to start their own business of any kind, from boutique fashion shops to like engineering firms, like, I mean, doesn't matter, but just kind of the how-tos, like the first steps on how to start a business.
Yeah.
So that's there. But if you just go to my website, cathykristen.com, and it's Cathy with a C, Cathy, and then Kristen, Christen, cathykristen.com. You'll see tabs for the other things there, and the free workbook that I was sharing, the free ebook. It's just like 8 pages, but it has the 7 steps to live a life you love. A really fun exercise to do for yourself, to do with your partner. And then if there are people on your team or people you work with, like it's just neat because you're able to like have a deeper sense of connection with people when you know some of those like goals and hopes and dreams and, fears. Like there's just a deeper level of intimacy that you'll share with them. Yeah. And it's some stuff that some people never know about each other. You're like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like you wanted to do that. So it's really neat. And I think it brings like home and personal relationships alive, as well as the workplace. So that's there. That's a free gift. So you can, grab that. And then it has a link on my website too, to the books on Amazon. And I'll send that to you so you have it and you can check it out. But some cool stuff. But everything you do.
Social media is just at Cathy Kristen.
It's actually, I'm glad you said that. It's at Cathy V. My maiden name is Vasquez. Okay. So it's at Cathy V. Kristen is my Instagram and my Facebook as well.
Okay, cool. So that people can go on there, because I post a lot of these podcast things on Instagram, so they might just link right on over, and then they can go to your website from there, because they should check it out. Thank you so much for coming, Cathy. I'm just so glad that we found each other. Like I really it's so wonderful that you happened to find me on the podcast and on Instagram and everything. And I'm just so glad you could make the time for us and give us all of your wisdom. And I love you. It's like
it was so great to chat.
So great to hang out virtually.
Yes, absolutely. And any way I can support or help, you can reach me on Instagram. I will be slowing down a bit the next couple months. I'm usually on the go. Like right now I'm on the road for 3 weeks, but I've got this little guy is coming. He's coming to town end of the year. So I will be kind
I
of
know
hanging.
we were stalking each other's Instagram. I was like, girl, you're pregnant. So happy for you. That's so cool. Another dream. And look, it's happening. It's real.
I know.
That's
I
awesome.
know. It's happening. It's so wild. So yeah, reach out. And then Instagram for anyone who wants to chat. Instagram and Facebook. I'm probably on Facebook more, which I'm now trying to be on Instagram more. And then LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is something that I'm now trying to utilize. I've been very like pen and paper CEO for most of my life. And in the last 2 years, I'm like, okay, I need to get on social media and be out there. So I'm like, or I'm going to be like a dinosaur and super extinct in the business world. So
right. Fair enough. But not that extinct though, because you found me via Instagram. And
I know I'm getting coaching. I'm getting coaching on like, you know, how to be out there in the online world and make friends. So I would have literally like months ago, I'm like, what? No, I can't, like, I don't know them. And they're like, you
and now,
network,
here we are.
network. I'm like, yeah, I network at events. And they're like, well, the world we live in now, you network on LinkedIn and on Instagram.
Yeah. So awesome.
But awesome. Well, it was wonderful chatting with you.
Yeah, you too.
And I wish all you listeners out there, like, make sure, and I love what you're doing, Janet, that you're bringing this with, you know, Cuppa Jen and, you know, just these really like great pieces of wisdom and inspiration and motivation as you guys are going out there to, like, you know, live a life you love. Like, that's what I'm all about, is people living a life they love and pursuing their dreams. And you can do all the things, you know, and maybe not all at the same time, but you know, it's like you focus on one thing, build it, and then add another thing and build it. And, you know, but when it comes to the different areas of your life outside professional, like, what are you doing to feed your adventure goals and your legacy goals and your learning goals, and like just things that really have you at your best, and where you don't look back and go, I never had time to do these things, or I never took time to do that. And so I just wish you guys a ton of adventure and fun, and hopefully you have some great tools that can help you also have the practical, because I'm the get shit done woman.
I love that about you, because I need you. We need you. Like, it's good. It's a good match, I think, really. For sure.
Awesome. Oh, well, I wish it was a great day.
Have fun in California. Get that beach life on.
Oh, I'm headed there.
All right.
See you, girl.
Bye.
Bye.